In this week's Vaticano, the Holy See makes preparations for next year's synod meetings that will focus on the pastoral care of the family. Pope Francis welcomes the sick and disabled as a precious treasure in the Church. The Pontifical Commission for Latin America hosts a meeting on the Church in the Americas at the Sanctuary of Our Lady of Guadalupe in Mexico City. Also, the Pope speaks with Costa Rica's president about the protection of creation. Ahead of an EWTN special on Blessed Junipero Serra, we catch up with Fray Luis Martin, an expert on his life. And this Italian journalist releases a book on the shared experiences of Blessed John Paul II and his personal secretary. All this and a word with some newlyweds after they meet the Pope, coming up. The Vatican is asking how parishes around the world minister to Catholics who are divorced and remarried, living with someone to whom they are not married or engaged in same-sex unions. The surveys are part of the Vatican's preparation for next year's synod to examine the Church's care for the family.
Tutto sarà canalizzato attraverso.
Everything will be channeled through the bishops and the bishops' conferences, but this doesn't exclude that one freely, in an autonomous and personal way, may send their responses directly to our headquarters. We have attentively studied this questionnaire, and we have made it short enough so that as soon as it's sent, the reactions will arrive quickly. As soon as we receive all of the material, we will make a summary from which the instrumentum laboris will be born. And this working document will need to be prepared by May of 2014.
Speriamo nel mese di maggio.
An example
that confirms what Monsignor Baldisseri has just explained is the following. Among all the thousands of letters we are receiving, one in particular has impacted us. In the letter, the sender tells us that it would be extremely important to examine the issue of incest during the synod, a tragic and very important problem. Naturally, based on everything that we will receive, whether to address this issue during the Extraordinary Assembly or during the 2015 Synod will then be decided. Not dealing with this issue immediately doesn't mean that we aren't taking it into consideration. In fact, just today, we spoke about the importance of facing this dramatic subject.
As this November 5th press conference, organizers said not to expect the event to produce changes in church teaching.
Surely we do not want the public opinion to tell us what the natural law is. The will of God and the fundamental standards of morality are not debatable subjects. But the level of conscience that the faithful have in this reality is an important pastoral issue. We're not starting a debate on Catholic doctrine. Based on pastoral experiences, what we are pursuing is to study the different concrete situations and look for concrete solutions.
Pope Francis will be calling over 200 bishops and experts for the October 2014 Synod meetings. Asking bishops to send the surveys to parishes has been seen as a Vatican attempt to get the best picture possible ahead of the event. Unitalsi is the Italian union that takes pilgrims to Lourdes and other international shrines. Sick, disabled, and volunteers of the union met with Pope Francis at Paul VI Hall. For about 2 hours, he greeted and chatted with all those present, exchanging gestures of tenderness and gratitude.
Cari sorelle e fratelli ammalati.
Dear brothers and sisters who are sick, do not consider yourselves only objects of solidarity and charity. You are a very important part of the life and mission of the Church. You hold a special place, a specific role in parishes and in each ecclesial area. Your presence, silent but more eloquent than many words, your prayers, your daily offering of your sufferings in unity with the sufferings of Jesus, crucified for the salvation of the world, the patient and joyful acceptance of your condition are a spiritual resource, an invaluable asset to every Christian community. Do not be ashamed of being a precious treasure for the Church.
Non vergognatevi di essere un tesoro prezioso della Chiesa.
Unitalsi wanted to celebrate its 110th anniversary with Pope Francis.
Da 110 anni la vostra associazione si dedica.
Your association has been dedicating itself to people who are sick or in fragile conditions for 110 years, with a typical evangelical style. In fact, your work is not welfarism or philanthropy, but a genuine announcement of the gospel of charity. It is the ministry of consolation. And this is something big. I think of all the members of Unitalsi scattered throughout Italy. You are men and women, mothers and fathers, many young people, who, moved by the love of Christ and the example of the Good Samaritan, face the suffering. You do not turn your back. Today's cultural and social context tends to hide physical fragility. It considers it only a problem, which requires resignation, pity, and sometimes the waste of those people. Today's cultural and social context tends to hide physical fragility. It considers it only a problem, which requires resignation, pity, and which sometimes considers efforts for those people to be a waste. Unitalsi is called to be a prophetic sign and to go against this mundane logic, the logic of waste, helping those who suffer so that they can be protagonists of the Church's society and also of the same association, to favor the real inclusion of the sick in the Christian community, and so that they really feel they belong to this community. Inclusion is needed in parishes and associations. It's about really valuing the presence and testimony of frail people, not only as recipients of evangelizing work, but also as active subjects of the same apostolic action.
Soggetti attivi di questa stessa azione apostolica.
This week, church leaders from the whole American continent, North, South, and Central, are meeting in Mexico. Under the theme Our Lady of Guadalupe, Star of Evangelization of the American Continent, the aim is to network and talk about the problems the church faces on that side of the ocean. The Secretary of the Pontifical Council for Latin America told us more about the event, which is organized by the Council, the Knights of Columbus, and the Institute of Guadalupan Studies.
Vamos como peregrinos.
We are going as pilgrims to the sanctuary, from Alaska to Patagonia. We are going as pilgrims to pray with insistence, as Pope Francis likes to say, to pray to Our Lady and to entrust to her the intentions of this pontificate of Pope Francis, and especially the Continental Mission. Last year, from December the 9th to the 12th, culminating with the Feast of Our Lady of Guadalupe, we had an important Congress at the Vatican that was inaugurated by Pope Benedict XVI and organized by our Pontifical Commission for Latin America and the Knights of Columbus. We took up again the prophetic intuition of John Paul II that referred to the Church in America, to creating greater ties of communion and collaboration among the churches in Latin America and the U.S. and Canada in the period of the new evangelization. There, the idea came up to give continuity to this precious initiative, but this time at the very sanctuary of Our Lady of Guadalupe, which is the place of encounter. It's the place of significance, of the unity of the peoples of all of the American continent. She who is the star of the first and the new evangelizations, the Empress of the Americas. The faith was incarnated in the different realities of the American continent as a process of inculturation and was rolled out in different ways. Our nations have lived forms of cultural, social, economic, and political development that have been very, very diverse. What seems to me to be fundamental is to take that diversity into account, but also to try and bring it to the greatest unity possible. We think that the greatest communion between the United States and Canada with the churches in Latin America will result in a greater solidarity among the peoples and nations in all of America.
Redundará en una mayor solidaridad entre los pueblos y naciones de todo el continente.
After the break, the Pope meets with the President of Costa Rica and speaks about combating evil during the general audience. Thanks for watching. This is Vaticano. On November the 8th, the president of Costa Rica met with Pope Francis. She spoke with him about issues currently affecting society and the nation, and also on protection of the environment.
We are really having difficulties in the infrastructure of the country. I would say that at the present moment, this is the main problem that we have in Costa Rica. Costa Rica is a tropical country, and it rains a lot. And of course, that our roads are not the best roads in the world. We're working on it. Another problem that we have is the amount of unemployment that fortunately it is coming down. And I would say the last but not the least important is trying to redistribute better the national rent in order for all the people to have a good standard of living. I would just basically think that those are the three main concerns of President Chinchilla, and I'm sure that the next government that is going to be elected next February, it's going to face exactly the same problems as I am telling you at this time. I think that the one thing that is more important about Costa Rica is our peace, is our system, is our democracy, values. Everybody is equal to the law. We abolished the army, and instead of spending in the army, we spent in medicine, we spend in instruction to all the people that is obligatory. We spend in forest. We have 30% of forest reserved for the future that is untouchable. So I would say that we are carrying this message to Italy and to all over the world. These are the main attitudes that we are carrying.
The Holy See and Costa Rica have had full diplomatic relations since 1908. Pope Francis told thousands during his weekly general audience that although baptism gives us grace, it doesn't take away our responsibilities. At St. Peter's Square, he described it as a bath of regeneration in the Spirit that illuminates us with God's grace. But he added that we still have the responsibility to fight against evil.
Queridos hermanos y hermanas, hoy nos fijamos en el artículo del credo que dice:
Dear brothers and sisters, today we focus on the part of the Creed that says, I believe in one baptism for the forgiveness of sins. Baptism is the door of faith and the fountain of Christian life, our relation with God as children, as well as the starting point of a path of conversion that lasts the whole of life. This sacrament constitutes a true immersion in the depth of Christ, to rise with Him in a new life. It is a bath of regeneration by water and the Spirit, and that illuminates us with the grace of Christ, so that we may also be light for others. In baptism, God's mercy intervenes in a powerful way to save us and forgive our sins, opening us the doors to a new life. However, our responsibility and our effort to fight each day against evil impulses and Satan's action, which are always lurking, is not diminished. Brothers and sisters, are we conscious that baptism is the fountain of our relationship with God? Is it a living reality for us? Do we often reflect about this gift that we have received, this profound union with Jesus, who gave His life for me? Do I trust in the love of God that dwells in the depth of my being?
En el amor de Cristo que habita en lo más hondo de mi corazón.
Brother Luis Martin is promoting the cause of a beatified Franciscan from Spain who spread the gospel to Native Americans in California. This month marks exactly 300 years since the birth of Blessed Junipero Serra.
Junipero de la Serra
Junipero Serra is a monk that the Indians, the natives, used to call Old Father. This is a nickname that shows the affection and love that he gained with his apostolate. This nickname also shows us that he was a person who was very close to the natives, and by being very close, this means he respected them. By respecting them, he did what he had to do, which was to preach to them about Jesus Christ and promote their dignity as human beings. For me, these two characteristics are vital. Something that I highlight in the person of Junipero Serra is what he means to the Church. The nickname Devourer of California was given to him, Devourer, namely for his apostolic zeal to do missionary work in which he was tireless. In fact, he would say, always forward, never go back. This is fundamental in his ministry, in his apostolate, and in his mission. Something that unites us is also what he meant for the United States. In the capital, there is a religious image among many thousands of founders of different states which make up the American Union. It is very, very important that he has this recognition because it unites the government, the community, and the faith, aspects that should always be seen like this. If we talk about a saint, or in our case of Junipero Serra, a blessed, we always think about God and faith, but we isolate faith from daily life. But no, faith is planted in daily life, and it should be manifested through actions, like Junipero Serra would say.
Junipero Serra was born on Spain's island of Mallorca in the early 1700s. He came from a poor, large family, and his parents had not gone to school. Then Junipero, previously known as José, met a group of Franciscans while he worked as a farmer. There, with the Franciscans, he found his vocation.
The first place Junipero Serra had to go on mission was Sierra Gorda de Querétaro. There he began to build churches, but above all he began to build up the society. He began to build up towns because he found small communities of natives, but they were all dispersed and each small community survived as best it could. Junipero Serra's intention, aside from converting them to Christianity, was to give them social and human dignity, teaching them how to better work the fields, how to take better care of cattle, on sciences and arts, particularly on ceramics, so that they could also be autonomous. From the beginning, he gave them all the necessary instruments so that they could have more ways of surviving. But his intention was to establish civil communities, and to go forward with his path, he could not make them dependent. That is the reason there is this autonomous characteristic. The United States has a history which also belongs to Junipero Serra, because he moved upstate to California, which is a very vast place. He established very important cities like San Francisco, Los Angeles, Santa Barbara, and 4 other missions during the time that he was there. There are testimonies of all of this thanks to his companion Francisco Palau, who writes all of this apostolate that he did.
The Devorador de California died in 1784, aged 71, in the Carmel of Monterrey, California. This month, EWTN will be running a 5-part series on Blessed Junipero's life. Stay with us. We'll be back with a privileged look into Blessed John Paul II's life through the eyes of his secretary. And Lectio Divina gets a boost from this new book. Welcome back. This is Vaticano. Direct witness of 6 conclaves, a survivor, as he likes to call himself, Gianfranco Świderkowski is one of the few journalists that can show off for having met 6 popes. Italian and with Polish roots, Świderkowski started to work as a Vaticanist 2 days before the death of Pius XII. Since then, the Vatican and the history of the Church have been the center of his career. I Have Lived with a Saint is the title of his last book. In it, Świderkowski describes the holiness of Blessed John Paul II through a look at Cardinal Stanisław Bibicz.
He saw John Paul as a father. He felt himself to be a small thing in contrast to him. He always had an infinite admiration for him. When we were thinking of a title for the Polish edition of my first book on John Paul, which I think is always a difficult process, I first proposed calling it A Life with Carol, because they had been together for 40 years. I wanted to personalize it, using the Pope's birth name, Carol, which is a beautiful name. But the Cardinal did not want his name in Polish to be in the title. He didn't want to give it that name because he thought it was too intimate, and that is why he called it instead Testimony. He did not want his closeness to the Pope to be revealed in the title of the book. He always wanted to respect him, and he always kept himself in the background. And I must say that there could be no better choice than this picture where he is witnessing a holy Pope, he who is in the background, with downcast eyes, which I think is very emblematic of this story.
On the question of who John Paul II was, Gianfranco gives an immediate response, almost without hesitation.
Sarò banale, ma devo dire che era un uomo.
It might sound trivial, but I have to say that he was a real man. He was a man who would look at you in the face, who would clutch your arm when he would speak to you. When we were at the table, he would speak to us with his eyes. For example, if there was a guest who was a little indiscreet, he would say with his eyes, "Can you make him stop speaking a little?" He was a normal man, and above all else, he was a man of God, but he was a normal man. And not for any reason do I believe that in the 2 films I've done, for which I used my book to contribute a bit to the script, there was this appeal to his humanity. The first film was called Carol, a Man Who Became Pope, and the second is Carol, a Man Who Remained a Real Man. The second title wasn't our idea. It came from Cardinal Sandri, who told us that we should emphasize his humanity. He was a pope who, referring to the divine wisdom, could create a point of reference for everyone, regardless of whether one was a Catholic or non-Catholic, of having a membership card of a certain political party in his pocket or not, of whether one's face was yellow or black. He could create the principle that we were all brothers. He could show the human face of God, and if you show the human face of God, all men recognize themselves as brothers in one God.
Se tu mostri il volto umano di Dio, tutti gli uomini si riconoscono fratelli di un Dio in qualche modo.
In the book, the journalist gathers the 50 years of priesthood of Cardinal Stanisław Dziwisz. He was ordained in 1963 by the then Bishop of Krakow, Karol Wojtyla, now known as Blessed John Paul II. The American Bible Society has released a new book on prayerful reading of the Bible, or lectio divina. Mario Paredes represented the society in Rome at this late October book presentation.
People don't know how to pray with the Bible. Unfortunately, in many places around the world and in many cultures, the prayerful reading of the Bible is something unknown. And the Bible not have a central place in the life of our Catholic communities. Lectio Divina is an ancient practice in the Church, in the Catholic tradition, on how to pray with the Bible. The most basic steps how to do Lectio Divina, the first step is what the text says. See, what is this reading today saying? And the second step, it is to meditate what the reading says, and you go by asking the text what the text is telling me today. And the third step, it is the response, the prayerful response. See, how do I respond to the God that is speaking to me in this reading, in this day? And finally, there is a fourth step, which is the contemplation, which is truly know how do I receive and live with and by the Word of God throughout the entire day.
The book is now available in English, Spanish, and Italian and is being distributed throughout the U.S. and Latin America. A pair of newlyweds who married in September got to meet Pope Francis. Why? Because if you have just gotten hitched, you can get front row tickets of one of his weekly general audiences. But under one condition, the bride and groom must come in their wedding garments.
I'm from Croatia.
Cameroon.
We met here in Rome. We had our marriage in Croatia, and now we are here for studying. So it's very interesting, to be dressed like this, and we are walking in these streets so often. And now it's really a special occasion for us. We are so happy to be here and to have met Pope. We wanted to meet Pope and to receive his blessing for the beginning of our marriage. It was great. It was really emotional, but at the same time we felt very relaxed, as if we are not meeting Pope, but very humble and simple.
Feels like you get married for the second time. So the Pope married you for the second time.
Yeah,
Okay.
We said something. We said that we are praying for all his intentions, and that's everything that we said. But he's always. It's interesting that he always repeats to each person that he meets. He always repeats the same phrase, "Pray for me." So that was very nice.
And he told you that?
Yeah. He told us that, and we already we said that we are praying and that we will be praying for him and for the church.